So you were doing good work, but you had an intuitive hit that the work wasn't good enough, that there was more that you were meant to be doing, and things started falling apart. And next thing you know, you find yourself in Mexico having some vision.
You've really done your homework well. Yeah, yeah. I was working at the prayer ministry. I was the director of training at the prayer ministry. I was on the faculty at the university there, teaching, and I had my private clientele, and I was doing seminars. A lot of them out of my living room, a lot of it renting places and things like that. I was doing all of this, so part of me was like, I'm doing well. I was doing seminars before they were popular. You know what I mean? Now it's like a thing. But I knew I was being pulled to start a
Mm.
community, but I was resisting it. I was like, I really don't want to, like my weekends. I'm really, don't, and I remember a couple of things happened. One, when I said yes, well, first of all, I had a crook in my neck that I was go to the chiropractor on a regular basis to get fixed. He put it into place. I could turn my neck to the right. Quickly, though, after a while, it would become sedentary again. It becomes stuck, and I couldn't have full rotation to the right. I could go to the left, but I couldn't go to the right. So when I finally said yes to establishing a spiritual community, my neck popped into place. I never had to go back to the chiropractor. That this condensation of energy was my resistance towards the destiny that was trying to come forward. I do go to Mexico. I think it was Cancun. No, it was Puerto Vallarta. I think it was. And I actually saw Agape. I had a vision of it. I remember coming back to Los Angeles and telling the director of the prayer ministry that I was going to be leaving. I was going to start a community. And she said to me, where? And I said, I've been advised to start it in Santa Monica. And she says, why don't you start a community for your own people? And I said, short people? And she turned red and felt embarrassed, because she was saying, why don't you start it in the hood? Why don't,
Mhm.
why, for black people? And then she was so embarrassed about saying that. And eventually, uh, I started my vision group, pulled people together in my living rooms. I had three groups of people that I pulled from. There was my private clientele. People were always saying, well, if you ever start anything, please let me know. And I'd always say, I'm not going to start anything. Don't worry. And then there was I was teaching a practitioner class at the time. And they were always saying to me, if you ever start anything, we're going to be right there with you. Okay. And then there was people that from the seminars I was doing. So anyway, curated a number of people to meet in my living room. And I started this vision group. Nirvana Gale was there. I can see Deborah Johnson there. I can see Joan Stedman. I can see Bill Russell. I can see Eunice Shelfine. I can see all these people. I can see them all now. Coco Stewart. They're all ministers. Um, I started this vision group to open up to the possibility of catching a vision for a spiritual community and then becoming the vibration of it. Number of months, just meeting every week um, to become the frequency of the community we wanted to birth. So it wasn't about business plans, wasn't about linear strategy. It was about becoming the consciousness of agape, the consciousness of love, the consciousness of connection, and then letting that determine the actions. And on November the 30th, 1986, we had our very first service 36 years ago. And
Was there any politics involved when you left the guided Church of Religious Science to do your own thing?
um, I think that when I left, there was a couple of things that happened. One, before I left, um, I was, I mentioned everything I was doing at the time. One of my students in my practitioner class was a part of a church in Fullerton. They didn't,
Mm.
and the minister had left, and they asked me, would I come speak? I said, sure. I came and spoke. The congregation wanted me to be the minister. And I said, I don't really think this is a fit for me. I said, I don't mind guest speaking, but I don't think I'm to be the minister of this church. And they just bugged me. And I said, okay, I'll put my hat in the ring and see what happens. So I began to speak. The congregation, they filled out a poll, and like 99.9% of people wanted me to be the minister. But this small group of people that was controlling the board, it was called the selection committee, would not turn my name in because they were saying things like, we can't have a black man as a minister in Orange County. The property values are going to go down. There's going to be trash on the lawn. They had all these stereotypes about black people. They're going to drive their lawns and they're going to put their cars on the front lawn. And now, what unbeknownst to these people is that my students, 2 of them were on that board.
Mm.
But they thought that these people were thinking like them. So they would get in these so-called private rooms and they'd just be talking about me. We can't let this be minister of the church. How are we going to stop this? So I've graduated now, obviously, from the School of Ministry. My first ministerial meeting, I'm walking across the campus, and a big-time minister who I had much respect for was speaking. I could hear him through the window. He was saying, there's a travesty happening. We have to pray to stop it. And I'm there, so I wonder what that is. He said, there's this black guy that's trying to become the minister at this church in Orange County. We've got to stop it. They're talking about me. See, and I'm thinking, wow, this metaphysical movement, we still haven't cleaned out the skeletons of racism, So I walk into the room and I sat right in front of him, front row, and just looked at him, and he changes the subject. Okay. Long story short, I pull out of that. I just said, this is not for me. But I never was going to allow anything outside of myself to determine my destiny, which quickened me to start my own thing. I wasn't going to put myself into a position where a human being was going to choose me, And subsequently, that church when we had that big earthquake back then, split down the middle and was uninhabitable for a long period of time. They had to meet somewhere else. And the woman that they hired to move in really quick so they can say that they were, diverse and everything. They hired a woman really quick. And she ended up pilfering a lot of the money and leaving. So all the things they were worried about happened.
Mm-hmm.
It was very interesting. But a few years later, they came to Agape and apologized and just they felt very sheepish and humble and just really felt bad,
Mm-hmm.
That particular experience took me to the depth of forgiveness because I would not allow them to birth rancor or resentment or animosity in my soul. I wouldn't allow it. I didn't care. They said all kinds of things about me. I never graduated from the school. I had the top class. In terms of taking the test, I had the top ever in history. I didn't graduate. They started all these lies about me, but I wouldn't allow it to infiltrate my mind. And so I taught my students because they were mad, what they were saying about me and what they were saying about black people. I said, no, we're not going to go down that path. We're going to bubble up, love them, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. And we're going to move forward, which is what we did. Yeah.
Obviously, Agape grew into this massive movement, but in the early days, did you have some imposter syndrome getting up there, talking or trying to find loans to finance buildings and
Oh,
all of
what
these kinds
happened?
of things?
What'd you call it? The imposter?
Yeah, these.
Imposter syndrome. What is that? Well, we had a couple of things that happened. When we moved from Santa Monica to Culver City, they sold the building in Santa Monica. And so we
That was that women's like building, right?
the women, the Santa Monica Bay Women's Club
Yeah.
was the first place we met.
Okay.
We only met there for a month because we grew so fast that they got nervous because unbeknownst to me at the time, that place was used as a Science of Mind church many years ago.
Mm.
And the organ was still there from the previous church. And I remember talking about it in a sermon one day, and they got kind of nervous that maybe I was trying to take over the building or something. I don't know. But we grew so fast that they didn't want us there anymore. So we moved to the Miramar Sheraton Hotel. And we started to grow from the basement to the Wedgwood room, to the Starlight Ballroom, to the biggest room they had. And we had all these extra rooms for the youth ministry. It became it grew quickly. And then, so we got our own building over on Olympic and Centinela in Culver City. And eventually took over another building that Barbara DeAngelis had. She let that go. So we had a nice little campus going on. And then it was sold. It was sold very fast. And we didn't know it was being sold because we may have been wanting to be in the running to get it. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So we're meeting in hotel rooms. People had to call a hotline to find out where we were going to meet week to week. It's like, where are they going to be? And so obviously during this time, so we finally find the place at Buckingham.
Mhm.
And we have a conditional use permit. The politics behind that was this particular area was never to be used for a nonprofit, particularly church. But there were some people on the city council that really loved our work. And so we had enough votes to get the conditional use permit. The other people put in a couple of obstacles. We had to have it rebuilt in a certain way, according to certain standards. And two, we had to have it completed by a certain period of time, or we would lose the conditional permit. So here I have a staff, I'm paying rent on a building, and I'm paying construction workers to complete the sanctuary. All of this is going on, and I'm really trying not to let go of the staff as well. So the money's dwindling, and it doesn't look like, linearly, logically, rationally, this is not going to happen, So I call a board meeting on a Saturday. And I also invite the main contractor and a couple of his guys into the board meeting. We're sitting in my office, and we talk about what we have to do and how much money we have to raise by a certain period of time. And people are just really kind of sad about it because it doesn't look like it's going to happen. And so I said, listen, there's a big guy named Jerry. I had Jerry sit in a chair at the door of my office. I said, nobody's leaving. Jerry, don't let anybody leave. We're going to stay. So I went around in a circle. I said, is it possible for us to raise the money and have this sanctuary completed? We didn't have to have everything completed, but we had to have the sanctuary portion completed with the choir loft, everything to code so the choir could stand on it, pass the code, the whole thing. And they said, no, it's doubtful, but it's possible. I would say, hold the possibility. So we went around the whole circle until I got from everybody, it's possible. I said, all I want you to do is just hold the possibility. Don't let your mind go into how we're going to do this. Just hold the feel that it's possible. Just hold it for the next week. That's all I want you to do. So we prayed and let everybody go. That was a Saturday. So that Monday or Tuesday, we had applied for a loan. We didn't have any collateral. Obviously, we were a young church. And one of the owners of the bank was going by the guy who had our portfolio, and he looked over his shoulder and says, what are you doing? He says, oh, it's Agape. They want to borrow a few $100,000. They don't have any collateral. And the owner says, is that Beckwith? And he says, yeah, Michael Beckwith. He said, okay, give him the money. He says, what? He says, they don't have any collateral at all. They just want the money. They don't have any collateral to give. He says, is that Beckwith? Yes, give them the money. So in a couple of days, we had the money. So then the contractor calls and says, you know what? I was so moved by that meeting on Saturday. I'm going to double up my crew. I'm going to pay for it out of my own pocket because I know you guys are good for the money, and we will complete this thing by this particular deadline. So within a few days, we had the money, we had the crew working day and night, and it was completed. And there's a photograph of me when we open, I'm jumping up and I'm higher than the podium. I just jump up really high, going, yeah, I can. So, it was all about possibility, uh, because linearly, rationally, it shouldn't have happened. But if you feel the possibility, with God consciousness, all things are possible. And so that became kind of a rallying point for a lot of things, whenever things get dire and economy's dipping and whatever's going on, what's the possibility here? What's the possibility here? What's the possibility?
If you like that video, you're going to love the next one. Click this thumbnail right here, and I'll see you over there.